panel by satellite radio host Leslie Marshall. Leslie, hang in there. Peter, go ahead. You've been waiting to jump in here.
Well, first of all, the demand is coming from the inflation. It's coming from all the money that's being created around the world that is being used to bid these prices higher. That's real. That has nothing to do with speculators. And you're talking, Alan, about tax cuts. What good is a tax cut if you have to spend more money for everything that you need to buy? If the government cuts taxes and creates inflation as a substitute, we're not better off. And, China does
not the answer to everything, as Republicans want to believe. And by the way, in terms of supply and demand, yeah, she's right, except that if you're holding back the supply,
who's holding back the supply?
We have a recession in this country. A recession. We're using less oil products, less gasoline, less home heating fuel oil, less jet fuel. Look at the tank farms. You know when they're going down. You can tell that they're all full. They're all filled to the brim.
Curtis is right. The roofs, they float. They're floating tops.
There's ships that are out in the Bay of New York there that have nowhere to go.
We're going to use a lot less oil in the future and pay a lot more for it because the people in China, they're going to start consuming a lot more oil. They're going to consume the oil that we used to consume that we can't afford.
All right, Leslie, you're listening to the conversation. Weigh in here. You're on the left. You tell us everything seems to be working. Is it working? We're paying more for stuff, yet 9.8% unemployment and home prices going down.
Well, when you look, again, supply and demand, basic economics, there is no shortage of oil throughout the world, guys. We all know this. And if that were the case, the Saudi royal family would be packing up their mansions and moving back to tents in the desert, and that's not happening. As far as the demand here in America, going forward, it is going to be reduced. More and more people are buying environmentally safe vehicles, and they're breaking away their dependence on oil. And what I think
honestly,
is,
Leslie,
I think big oil is punishing us, Eric.
That's not
big
why
oil is punishing us because I don't see the head of Shell Oil decreasing his salary.
That's not why there's a supply of oil that is where it is right now, because the 30 Chevy Volts they sold last week. That has nothing to do with it. Sandra, go ahead. When the economy starts to turn around, if the economy starts to turn around, my guess is that all those floating tanks that are full right now will start to get a lot emptier quickly.
Eric, consumers have very short memories. If you look back 2 years ago, December 2008, we were paying 76% less for a gallon of gasoline. We're now willing to pay 76 more today for a gallon of gasoline. We're barely out of the recession, and more people are driving. If they're willing to pay it, that's when prices go higher.
That's right. Go ahead, Alan. She's saying 76%. In a year, President Obama has driven up the price of gasoline by more than $1.30 a gallon.
Eric, you got to stop blaming.
$1.65 when he took office.
Can I finish the sentence?
Go ahead.
You got to stop blaming President Obama for everything. Like he's responsible solely for the price of oil? You got to be kidding me.
It's the deficit. He's also got Congress working with him. It's because of all the deficits. It's because of the stimulus.
The Saudi royal family has nothing to do with it, right?
They have nothing to do with it. Look, if you look at the price,
let's blame the Democrat in the White House.
Look at the Look at the price of oil in terms of gold. Oil prices are not rising. If we're going to diminish the value of our currency, if we're going to print currency and debase it and give it to the Saudis, they have to raise their prices just to stay even. We're trying to screw them.
I'm amazed at the number of refineries that suddenly are on a maintenance schedule. All of a sudden, they're not processing petroleum. I know, but normally they're in balance. But all of a sudden, it's an excessive number of refineries that are all of a sudden under a year-long maintenance, which is what they have to go through. But all of a sudden, at the same time, I wonder. Look, speculators are there to make money.
Wait a second.
Go ahead, Smitty. Last word.
Come on, refineries are in it to make a profit. If oil prices are too high and they're not making a profit because oil's at $100 a barrel, they're going to stop producing it.
Okay.
Come on, they're not working for you. They're working for themselves.
That's right. All right. Smitty, we're going to have to leave it there.
Of course, that's how they get a profit.
We're going to leave it there. Sandra, we're going to say thank you. All right, President Obama's ban on drilling in the Gulf of Mexico has cost plenty of potential jobs. It's estimated that 1 million barrels per day of additional oil production would equal 1 million new jobs. Joining me now is Republican Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson from Texas. Thanks for joining us again, Senator. Appreciate having you back on the show. So go ahead, take the ball and run with that. When we heard that a million barrels of additional production would create 1 million additional jobs here in the U.S., where we need jobs, we said, well, why not? Why is there the continuing moratorium on offshore oil drilling in the U.S.?
Well, the moratorium on permitting has caused a large number of the companies that have been trying to drill in the deep water and the shallow water to just give up. And we lost 14 of the deep water rigs, while the moratorium for even producing at all was not lifted for months and months and months. Those are jobs that went overseas, and that does affect supply. I heard your panel before, and nobody was addressing supply. The biggest resource we have that we can drill, because ANWR is the biggest, but we can't drill there, is the Gulf of Mexico. Sure. And there are continuing limitations and more permitting requirements put on by this administration that are freezing the ability to produce more oil. And they're trying to increase taxes on oil companies and refiners. And that Senator, is going to raise the price.
Let me give you a little quick timeline, or let's give our viewers a little timeline here. $147.25 a barrel is the highest price ever traded for a barrel of oil in America. That was the same exact week that President Bush lifted the moratorium on offshore drilling. Immediately after that, that oil price went from $147 to below $33 a barrel. It lost more than $110 a barrel immediately after that moratorium was lifted. Why is this moratorium back in play?
Because the administration is trying to limit the drilling in the Gulf of Mexico. That's why. It's just like they support not drilling in ANWR. They're raising the tax. They're trying to raise the tax on both refiners and oil producers. Well, of course, if they raise the tax, the price is going to go up. And when you limit supply, the price is going to go up. There's no question about it. And yet the administration continues to put bureaucratic roadblocks in the permitting process for drilling in the Gulf.
And that's because of why, Senator? Because of the BP spill? I mean, take us through that. Is BP cleaned up?
I think the BP spill was an excuse to put more regulations in place, when in fact all of the other operators have operated in the Gulf of Mexico for years, as many as 30 and 40 years in some places, and have never had an oil spill. This was a circumstance just like you have a plane crash or an automobile crash. I mean, it was an accident for a number of reasons, but that doesn't mean you shut down the whole operation.
Before we let you go, Senator, just want to know, what are your constituents, what are the people of Texas saying? Are they mad at Obama for not lifting this moratorium? Do they need the jobs? Do they want the jobs? What's the feeling?
Well, of course they want the jobs. This is a state that produces oil workers. They know this business. They're skilled. Many of them have had to move overseas because the company just can't afford to sit idle. The costs are huge to sit idle and pay people. So they move them overseas where they can be productive. So we've lost jobs in Texas, and families, of course, have suffered, and families have been split apart. That's not good for anybody.
Senator Hutchinson, appreciate your time once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.